Hi, everybody. Welcome to Divine Guidance with Nancy Ann. I'm Nancy Ann. Um, I hope your day's going well. It's a beautiful day out here in North Carolina. Um, but this video is actually a continuance from my last video about the miracles that were happening in the church. So it's related to the one that I named How I Was Led by Jesus, Mary, and God to Catholicism. So this is just a continuation of other miraculous things that happened in that church. Now, by now, we're already converted, so we're Catholics, and going to mass, there were like different things that were happening. But I want to share them with you because you know what, everybody, miracles do happen. And if we look at every day of our lives, you're going to find miracles in it. I mean, just growing our own food. I mean, to me, that's a miracle. Watching it grow and turn into a fruit or a vegetable. Even planting my flowers and, they start off all tiny, or sometimes I do seeds and just watching them grow. Those are all miracles. They're like blessings, right? So there's so many miracles that we have here just on our planet. And then we have miracles that come to us in different shapes and sizes, but everybody receives them. Sometimes you don't understand that that was a miracle given to you, and sometimes you do. But these were pretty powerful events that took place for my husband and I, and they were both for us and our children. However, they came in different forms for our souls, each of our souls. They were meant differently for us, for me and for him. But we were at mass, and this is big. We're at mass, and we're getting used to you know, in our Methodist church, you stood to sing songs or to say the Our Father. Um, but that was basically the only time you stood up. In the Catholic Church, as many of you Catholics out there know, to sitting, kneeling, standing, sitting, kneeling, standing. So we're learning, when you're kneeling, when you're supposed to kneel, when you're standing, when you're sitting, and so forth. So during the consecration, we were kneeling in prayer form. And for those of you that are not Catholic, you kneel and you sit and you're praying during this, and we're saying our prayers. And the priest is up at the altar, and the altar's dressed. And I happened to, something told me to open my eyes and look up there. So I opened my eyes and I look up, and there I saw three huge angels praying over the altar where the priest that God had showed me, who I would tell and show, tell all that had been shown to me, he was the priest doing the mass. As he brought the chalice up, that's when the angels appeared, and they were praying over the altar like this, and they were huge and beautiful. So people that don't believe in angels, I'm telling you, they are real. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, who knows? Who knows what I would believe during my lifetime if all these things didn't happen to me. I don't know. I've had people answer me that, but I know it's real. And I'm here to tell you and teach you that this is real. God is real. Jesus is real. Mary is real. The angels are real, and they surround us throughout our days and nights. But there they were, the three angels praying over there. I was in such awe, and I'm elbowing my husband. Peter, Peter, you're supposed to be quiet. And he's like, what? And I'm like, look up, look up. So he looks up and he goes, what? I go, don't you see it? Don't you see it? I'm whispering. And he goes, see what? See, and I said, there's three huge angels. You don't see them, angels? They're huge. How could nobody else see this? Like, I was just like, no way. There has to be other people that see this, right? They're huge and they're there, right? So, I mean, what a blessing. What a miracle, right? So, after the mass, I said, I gotta, you know, catch him before we leave. So he usually, oh, well, actually, every mass he was outside greeting everybody. So I went there, I go, you're not going to believe this one. And I told him. And then a couple of weeks later, I think it was, he had said there was another woman there that I guess was like me, that could see things, saw angels, saw Jesus, Mary, and so forth. And she had saw it too. So I was like, yes, somebody saw it. I knew somebody else had to see it, not just me. Because I am not nobody special. I mean, I am just like you. We are one. We are all the same. And God loves us all the same. It's what we're open to receive. And I've always allowed myself to be a vessel. So I think that's why I was seeing so much that I saw since, I was like 4 or 5 when the psychic gifts started. So I'll go into that. I'm going to do a video on that because I know there's lots of people. We're all psychics. We all have these gifts. But so that was one. Then we're in church another time. And this is like right before I joined the choir because I had a beautiful singing voice. Matter of fact, people were so kind. They used to come up to me after mass and say, "Be our cantor. You have a voice of an angel. You sound like angels singing." And I was too shy to go up in front of all. There was hundreds of people in that church. I mean, that church was packed, standing room only. I mean, it was packed. And there was no way I was going in front of all those people and singing. I mean, this is hard for me to do these recordings, but I was too shy. I was like, no, maybe the choir, because you're with a bunch of people, so you don't stand out. But but I used to be grateful, and I used to say thank you. It really touched my heart and my soul that they appreciated my singing. But that mass, I see we're leaving, and I see the priest speaking to a lady, and they're looking towards me. Now, mind you, there's a lot of people in this church. We're leaving now, right? And I look at my husband and I go, listen, that lady's talking about me. I know she is. And he goes, honey, there's 100 people behind you. And I go, I know, but I know, I just had a knowing of, I said, she's saying something to him about me. Well, when they got done with the conversation, he starts coming up one of the, rows, and he's, telling us, wait, wait. And I said, I told you she was talking about me. So I went over to see what he was. And what the lady was telling him is that it had to be the same lady. I never did ask, but I just knew kind of that it had to be the same lady that saw the angels the same day I did. So what she was telling him was when during mass, she happened to, something told her to look back. She looked back at me and my husband, and behind me, over me, was the Blessed Mother praying over me like this. I was like, wow, that's really cool. I'm like, please tell her thank you for telling me that, because I could feel, I could feel the energy of the Blessed Mother and Jesus, but I always feel them when I pray. I didn't know they were standing right behind me, but I could feel them. I could feel um, angels and Jesus and Mary always around. So I was like, that was awesome. But then I also said to the Blessed Mother later on that day in the evening I said, why are you praying over me? Is something going to happen? Because I did have this feeling. I kept telling my husband, I feel like you're going to leave me and I don't like this feeling. He goes, I'll never leave you. I love you. I said, I don't mean like divorce, but I just feel like you're going to leave me. And it was bothering me because I was feeling it very strong and I was getting nervous. And when I would ask, I wasn't being shown. And I was like, all right, it's not the right time for me to know something, but I know it. It's like I knew something wasn't right. So that was that day. I have my little notes here because I don't want to forget to tell you everything. Um, oh, and then we were at a christening, I believe. It was somebody invited us to their child's christening, their baby's christening, and we were sitting in the church, and it was the whole mass, and all of a sudden I see my husband, tears coming down his face. And I was like, that's odd. He's never cried in church. Um, so I said, what's the matter? And he goes, I think I finally feel it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm feeling my heart, like I'm feeling God. And he used to ask me all the time, what does it feel like? Because he doesn't feel what I feel. He says, I feel it when you're talking about it. Like when I would talk about the visions and what Jesus said or what Mary came to say, or the angels, he would feel it like that upbeat and that that good feeling. He said it would like kind of come from me into him. And I used to go, oh, that's cool, you know? And I always thought it was the healing because I always knew I was a healer. Um, but I always thought it was something that needed to be healed in his heart, maybe, you know? And he finally felt it. So he finally felt that feeling of connecting to God, right? To source, to God, the universe, however you want to say it. But for him, it was that connection to God. So it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. So that was like, it felt like a miracle to him and to me. You know, that was like another beautiful, beautiful thing that happened. Then the Blessed Mother came to me, and this was during a mass. You know, this is a different time. We're at mass, and she showed me her in a statue in another country, and she was in a church or outside the church, like in this grotto, and she was crying, but crying tears of blood. And I said, "Dear Mother Mary, why are you crying? What it broke my heart to see her cry. So now I'm crying and I can feel her hurt." And she said, "The children, my children, they've lost their way. They need to come back. They've lost their way. They're selfish and in other words, just wanting not sharing with others, not helping one another. They're selfish." And she was so hurt, and she said, we need to teach them. You need to teach them. And my tears are real. She wanted me to let the priest know that those tears were real. So I didn't know that where the statue was. She just showed me what it looked like, you know, but it was by a big church in another country. It wasn't in this country, in the US. So I tell the priest, and he was like, yeah, and he had just found out, it was either that morning or the day before, that they claimed the church or the Vatican, I guess it is, was looking into this as a miracle because yes, there was a statue crying tears of blood. That was the statue of Mother Mary. And I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Do you know why she's crying?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you what she told me." So I told him. So, you know, a lot of times when I had these visions, his like his you know, when they talk up see, I haven't been to church in so long. When he talks about, you know, how we need to live our lives, what God expects of us and so forth. Oh, see, this is how my mind goes. Um, sorry, but you know what I'm talking about. So he's speaking, and he would incorporate these things in a kind way of, you know, teaching the people. Another time, Jesus had come to me, and I relayed the message, and he did a mass regarding this too. Um, that the people were in the church. Now, remember, Jesus has always told me he didn't come here to build churches and temples and so forth because God is in us, um, and so forth. But because of the gathering of the church, that's a good thing. Like that makes them happy because we're praying together. But he was saying during that time, now this is the 90s into 2000, that the people were showing up, but their hearts were not there. So they were doing the motions of the praying and stuff, but they weren't really there. Their hearts were not in it. They were just speaking the words without feeling. So he said we need to, you know, we need to reach their hearts again. They're lost. They're like, in other words, they were lost souls, and there was a lot going on back then. Because you remember the other videos will tell you about the different things, the timelines and stuff that we were going through and coming up to going through. Like 2012 was big. So I relayed the message, and his homily, oh, that's the word, homily. His homily was about, see, it came. Thank you. So his homily was about, you know, you just showing up doesn't make you close to God. Just showing up and speaking the words, they have to come from your heart. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff, like, he did work with his homilies, worked a lot with the visions and the words that I expressed to him that were said by Jesus or Mary. Um, and this is always the same priest that God had showed me when he turned, and in that last video of how I met, how Jesus, Mary, and God led me to the Catholic Church. So to make sense of all this, you really should go back and watch that if you can. Um, Next thing I see is now, I was a convert, so I didn't know all their stepping stones, like how priests move up to become monsignors and so forth, their hierarchy. I really didn't know much about that, and it didn't really matter to me. So I see this. I'm like, I just saw you. You're like changing hats. You're gonna be wearing this funny hat at a ceremony. I said, I don't know what it is because I don't understand your ceremony stuff. And he started laughing, and the deacon that was standing with us at the time started laughing. He goes, you're gonna become a monsignor. I go, whatever the word is, you're gonna be there soon. And that did happen. It was like a year later. Well, I see things in threes. So 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, like that. For some reason, number 7 and 3 has always been with me. So that did happen. Then this is going to really freak everybody out. But then now we're at a different, these are all different masses. These are all happening between 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000. This was all happening. So we're at church, during the consecration. Something tells me to look up. And again, I see the 3 big angels, which were there quite often. It was very rare for me not to see them at this point. The 3 huge, beautiful angels were over the altar praying. And when he held up the wafer, the hose, when he held that up, I watched that wafer turn to blood and pour into the chalice. I was in shock. I was like, oh my God. And my husband's like, what? I go, you didn't see that? I go, that wafer just turned to blood. I was whispering, turned to blood and went into that cup, into that chalice. And he goes, oh my God. I go, yeah. So that was really strange, right? That was like, whoa, I didn't, you know, everybody used to say it's the, like it refers to the body of Christ, but it's not. That like showed me like it does turn into his blood. So that was kind of miraculous, right? So that was something that was like, wow, seeing that. Then there was another time I was praying. It was before bed, I believe. Because I was always praying. So I was praying, and all of a sudden I have this vision of me receiving, and this was actually before I saw the wafer turn to blood. Um, I see me going up for communion, and when the priest placed the wafer on my tongue, it turned to blood. And I was like, Jesus, please don't let that happen to me. Please don't let this happen to me. I don't want this to happen to me. I do not accept that happening to me. Like, I got nervous. I was like, they're going to think I'm a freak in this church, right? So I was like, please don't let this happen. So I told the priest, and he said, well, it's probably not going to, don't worry, it's not going to happen, but it's a sign. And he said, I think they're calling you to be what did you call, I can't remember what the lingo is, but in other words, for me to go bring the body of Christ to the sick, or in line, stand in line to hand out the body of Christ. And I was like, I'm not doing that. My hands are not touching something that's supposed to be that holy. After I had that, and then the next mass is when I saw that the wafer turn into blood and go into the chalice. There was no way I was putting my hands on that wafer. My hands were not holy, you know? So I was like, so no, I never did do it. Just if anybody's wondering, no, I didn't do that. I did, however, because he knew that I was born a healer and that God used me and Jesus, the ink that used me as a vessel to heal others. So he asked me if I would please join the Catholic Women of Zion, I think it was called. Yeah, that's what it was called. So I said, okay, what's it about? And then that's what he said. They do a prayer breakfast and then people come up for to be prayed over. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, that would be a beautiful thing to do, right? So I go, I join. We have our first little meeting gathering. It was really beautiful. It was really nice. And there's people there. And then there was like 5 or 6 of us that lined up, and then people would come up to you. This freaked me out because I have to tell you, I've seen this happen on TV, and when my dad was alive there, I used to go, why are you watching that? That's fake. That's not real. That's fake. People falling when you go like this and they fall to the ground. I used to go, come on, they're fake. Well, God showed me. don't don't ever knock anything. Yes, could there be charlatans out there, fake people out there? Yes. I do know that, and I was made aware of that by God, or by Jesus and by Mary, and that I will have a knowing. And it's true, I do have a knowing when somebody is false, not telling the truth about what they say they saw. So, but that's between them and God, not between me and making them look bad. Um, so the first person that comes up, I pray, I lay my hands like this on them, right? They fall back on the floor. I was like, whoa. And I could feel the energy come through me, down my arms, into my hands, and into that person. Well, I was like, oh my gosh, this is real? What is going on here? Is this lady just making this up? So the next person comes. Same thing happens. Okay, getting a little nervous now. Another person comes. Do the same thing. Same thing happens. Every single person I laid my hands on fell. All of a sudden, to the corner of my eye, I see the priest, right? The one. I I tell the lady, I have to go to the ladies' room. I'll be right back. And I ran out the door and I said, what is going on? Were you watching that? And he said, yeah. I said, why are they falling to the floor? What is going on? I thought that stuff was fake. And he goes, they're laying in the spirit and they're being healed. And I said, oh my gosh, could you have forewarned me? I always thought that stuff was fake, not the healing part, but the falling to the floor. Like, oh my gosh, are they going to get hurt? But not one single person was hurt. But the day went on, the couple hours that we were there, every person feel the energy come through, feel the heat, my hands, they get hot. Feel the heat, put my hands up, and this is after praying, boom, to the floor they fell. Now, later on, after that was over, everybody that I laid my hands on, they fell to the floor. Okay, I understand now that that is real and that does happen. A couple weeks go by and I was going to teach CCD, teach the little kids about Jesus, which was so exciting. I loved it. Um, and I went to go get the stuff and I see the priest. I'm not saying names because I didn't get permission, so I don't want to say names. I wish I could. But so I go get the priest and or the priest came out and he said, "Come here, I got to tell you something." So I said, "What?" So he goes, "Quite a few of those people have already come to tell me that you were the one that laid your hands on them and one had to have a surgery and whatever the surgery was, they didn't have to have it no more. Another one had something to do with disc in their back and that kind of surgery. Well, they weren't protruded no more. Another one had a tumor somewhere in their body, gone. So I said, well, did you tell them to, it's not me that's doing that. This is coming from God. And he goes, yeah, I did. I go, because I've had other people think it was me. Um, and I said, no, I'm just the vessel, just thank Jesus, thank God, or the universe, whoever you believe in, thank them. because I had a lady come to me at a soccer field, and I said to my husband, "Oh my gosh, there's so many people here at the soccer field, right?" And I said, "But I guess God's work has to be done wherever you are, right?" So she came, this lady that I knew, she came with her friend, and apparently she was going to doctors, couldn't find out what was wrong with her. So I scanned, so, I said, okay, we said prayers. I said, let's hold hands and say a prayer. And I asked for guidance. And then I laid my hands like, like this on her, like that. And then my hands, what they do is they scan your body. And it just keeps going until there's something there. And then it reveals it to me so I could see it like an x-ray. So as I'm going through the body, I see an x-ray. And I got to a point, and yes, there was something there, but it would have been hard for like any kind of MRI or CAT scan to detect it because it was tiny and it was being blocked. So I could see, I could understand why it wasn't being seen. So I explained to her where it was and how we can find it because I'm being told, right? So then I keep going, and then I get to like the abdomen area, and I'm like, oh, I said, it's, you got something going on with your intestines, blah, 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 blah. And then I explained to her what was going on and to have, go to the GI. It's not going to be serious, but it has to do with foods you're eating. You won't be able to eat them for right now. Um, and then I went down all the way down, and I did do another scan just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And she came back to tell me I was coming out of church, and actually it was the lady I knew. She's Nancy, Nancy. I said, yeah. She said, my friend, you were right, and the doctor wants to know, how did you know that? I go, well, have fun explaining that to him because I'm not, right? So she said, yeah, but you saved her. She had cancer and they got it all out. She's fine. And I said, well, I'm so happy to hear that, but tell her to thank God because I'm a vessel. I'm not anything special. So that was just one. Another person had come to my house, knocked on my door unexpectedly. I let her in, and she asked me, she was scared of having surgery, and she asked me if I could pray over her. So I said, yeah. So I laid her down on my couch. I did my thing. And sure enough, when she went back to the doctors, God had healed her. So I witnessed so many miracles. And, I always knew something was up with my hands since I think I started noticing it when I was like 12, 13. So if I was around anybody that was ill, I didn't know it at the time, but my hands get hot. So if I touch them, I feel it. But I didn't have to express it back then. I was young. I didn't understand what was going on until I was older, like late teens, early 20s. And and that's another video I want to talk about. I'm going to, because that was another, like, I want everybody to learn and understand how our guardian angels, Mary, Jesus, how even God Himself, how they help us on our path, on this journey. But sometimes we just ignore it. And that's when the bad stuff happens. And the bad stuff doesn't come from God. It's from us, from the people, from the humans. He wants all good things to come our way. But those are, I mean, there's a funny story I could tell you real quick before we go. Is in church when you stand and you do the Our Father, we hold hands, right? Well, nobody ever want, even my own husband, because my hands when I pray, especially if someone's sick, they get so hot, like hot, hot, where you don't want to hold the person's hand. And I've had that happen, and I wasn't getting it then, but I'll describe this again in a different video. But my husband and the lady next to me, hot hands, and I'm like, didn't even think that it was my husband that was sick. But when we left, I said the lady took her hand away from me. But that lady was very, very sick. And I said to my husband, I don't know. Am I supposed to tell her? But she's not going to be here like much longer. I'm seeing like days. And she did pass. She was very sick. But those are the things that would happen to me in church while praying. Nobody wanted to hold my hand because they were too hot. So I find that funny because, think of it. I'm a stranger to you. We're in church and you go put your hand on my hand and all of a sudden all this heat comes out. That's weird to people, right? But yeah, so that was some more of the miracles. There are so many more miracles that happened. I will do that in another video because that one's a rough one to get through because it has to do with the time when my husband got sick and then he did pass away. He did cross over. So that's a tough one to get through, but I will do it because I think it will help so many people who have been in that situation where you're losing a loved one or you tragically lost a loved one and knowing that what goes on while that transitioning has happened. That I think will help many people. So I will get the courage up to try and get through that video without crying and getting emotional. I am a lot stronger now, but yeah. So those are some of the miracles. Aren't they amazing? Like, think about it. Our life is just one big miracle. But I hope this resonated with you. If it did, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share to somebody that you think would love to hear this about the miracles. And leave little hearts or smiley faces or a comment or a question. I'm here, okay? God bless you all. Have an amazing day. I send you all love from my heart. God bless you.